You, my masses, have suffered a drought of inspiration, as you have been denied the clouds of rain that is your main man. Gaze into the heavens, for the deluge is upon you. Now I speak to you of fragility in RPGs. One of the most important constructs to think about when putting together and building a system mechanic is fragility. How easy is it to destroy the characters? Directly correlated to the ease in which one may destroy the characters, the player characters, the non-player characters, is a large portion of the sell factor. If you think your character can be annihilated just like that, you are more likely to play in a form and fashion to indicate that you believe your character can be annihilated just like that. And just like that, it's so easy to take one out in the night. Now, that should carefully be thought upon when considering what style of game you wish to have. Now, in Dungeons & Dragons, you often can account at some point in your career of playing or dungeon mastering this game that you have seen some unbelievably ridiculous foolishness that broke loose, and that foolishness continued to creep into your mind and seep down like so much sewage. Now, that being said, think of a scene like this. The turrets are covered with 45 archers, each with heavy crossbows and elves, as the barbarian bursts through the portcullis, and he comes into the castle. They fire their shots at him. None of them hurting him at all. He walks right past them. Between armor class and hit points, few of them hit him, and with his damage reduction, those few that did no damage, or so little with his 912 hit points that it just didn't matter. He walks up to the king. He smacks the king in the mouth. He turns the king over, does vile and reprehensible things to him in front of his people, while they continually make attack rolls against him. He doesn't care. He has so many hit points that it defies any degree of sense. And you quite honestly would not watch that. If you saw it in a television show, you'd be like, man, what about the writers of Hercules and Legendary Journeys? That guy was a selling machine compared to what we're seeing right now. And you would be right in thinking that. So it creates an utter absurdity, a paradox in mechanics when they pyramid and stack up to a point where you could essentially walk past that number of people without having any concern for them, without paying them any mind. You would, in fact, in a book, in a movie, in a television show, just die if you did that. It would be a horrible, horrible death with a tremendous amount of quarrels in your body. So for me, I like to take that stance. I like to bring it back and dial a little grittier. Now, there's the pretty far extremes with a game like Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium, where you have an absurd amount of fragility. In fact, nothing even needs to touch you. Your mind can just snap, boom, and you're done. Call of Cthulhu does not lend itself well to having a long-term campaign run. It just doesn't. And when you try to, it creates problems. And let's remember, Lovecraft was not a novelist. He wrote short stories with a few novellas in there, and those are essentially dreamland for the most part. Dream Quest of the Unknown Kadath, for example. Now, most of his stories are very short, and they start off with saying, I'm dead or went crazy. Now let's find out why. And we eventually get to that final culmination. But his short stories are predominantly particularly short. So should Call of Cthulhu be. It stretches it, and quite honestly can come off rather poor when it's going for too many game sessions. Now, again, the fragility there in your character is very, very high. It is very easy for your character to die. It is very easy for your character to go insane without ever even being attacked at all. And that's essentially, you know, again, removed from play. Insanity points all the way down. And it's that kind of time. And it's that kind of party. So those are very important things to think about when you think about fragility. Do you want to ratchet it all the way up, where you're essentially playing video game-esque tactics, and you could just crush, trouns, and just demolish and dispose of anyone you can? This sort of logic will apply in a video game. You will see many video games that operate under this. I can't think of any movies that characters are to that level of absolute ridiculousness. Now, it's important to consider that when you're designing what sort of game you want, to really find out what you like. Onion Kid did a video about this topic earlier, and I'm going to respond this over to him. I think that each and every one of you may be interested to hear his thoughts on the subject as well. Oil! So, for me, it's a desire to have the characters put in a state of mind that, oh, this is dangerous. I could be damaged. I could be hurt. I could be killed. And to connect to their minds a higher state of play. A higher state of play is a greater ability to immerse yourself. And once you can immerse yourself, you can play at a level that continues to escalate. And for me, that's what systems need to do, is combine to produce the best quality of role-playing, the best immersive experience that you can have at your table. That is, for my estimation, really the only possible thing that systems can do. The only need you have of systems is to promote role-playing and to add in that very slight arbitrary randomizer. So for me, one of the big important factors is something that I've just always thought, say, for example, Dungeons & Dragons handles absolutely horrible, are hit points. And Onion Kid talked about that too. The fact that hit points are just like, it's just like, oh God, I stick you in the face. So, you need to think about the fact that hit points, in fact, are not really a good mechanic at all. And with the fact the 912 variations of Dungeons & Dragons have produced, the fact that that is still the core guideline right in the book, the hit points that seem to never change. They change and mutilate everything around them. But hit points and armor class, the two absolute abhorrent aspects of the game, remain the same. Again, also, when you're looking at curative abilities, those need to have some degree of thought put into those, along with hit points, along with any other tool you use in those regards. For me, I like to have, and what I did with my system, with the accelerant system, is to design a health gauge matrix that produces the ability to sell, to be damaged, to be afraid, to not just simply be, up at 119 hit points or down at 1 hit point, and you're still doing cartwheels like, woohoo, no selling for me. I got 1 hit point, G, let it be, let it be. And they just, over and over and over again, I've seen that sort of thing. I'm just walking around fine. But 1 hit point, in my mind, you're almost dead, particularly if you had 119. That's a tremendous amount of hit points. I think when you logistically have the possibility of being cleaved in half by 1 hit of a sword, you're like, I don't think I want to fight that ogre over there. I really don't think I do, because he has a sword and an axe, and 1 sword could kill me, so why am I going to get involved with a big brutish ogre? I think not. And when you start putting yourself in those mindsets, you start getting more into the mindset of the person. You're playing the character that you have. You put the mask on over your eyes. You're staring out into the vistas, and you believe, if only for a moment, that that is you. And that is where the magic happens. That is where it lies. That is immersion.